This morning we had a news brief mishap where folks were not able to hear me with the news report, so I thought I'd give it to you once again. Medjugorje mourns Christmas market attack victims as fears swirl over deeper German social attacks and all along those lines. So the German president has called for unity on his Christmas address, and that is something that was in the news as well. So definitely that is something that's being reported, as well as the fact that there's a lot of news going on in the sprint of what's going on with France. So French President Emmanuel Macron appoints a new cabinet after his previous government had collapsed. So the French unveil a fresh government with budget battles looming. So that's something that we're seeing a lot of in the news as well. And PM vows escalated fight against Houthis. Officials said urging direct attack on Iran. So Houthi militants and Israel's enemy in Yemen prove hard for U.S. to deter. The last one standing, Kat says Israel will deal a decisive blow to the Houthis, and Houthis missile strikes Tel Aviv as attacks increase, and that was reported a few days ago as well. And dozens killed in Israeli strikes, as Gaza officials say. So it looks like escalating Israeli strike on Gaza killed 50 Palestinians in 24 hours. So that's something else that folks are talking about in the news as well. And definitely there's a lot of things going on with coalition building as well. So that's something that is being talked about in Israel and among the world as well. So definitely a lot of things are going on in that space. And a former Israeli spy describes the attack using exploding electronic devices against the Hezbollah terrorists, and that was reported on 60 Minutes. An ex-Mossad agent details the exploding Hezbollah pager operation that broke Nasrallah. So definitely that is something that the folks were talking about a lot over the last several days, and all in that space ever since that 60-minute report of yesterday, and all in that space. So a lot of things are going on in that world. And Jordan and Qatari envoys meet Syria's new leader for reconstruction talks. So it does look like there's some things going on in that space as well. And Zelensky accuses Slovak Prime Minister Fico of helping Putin to weaken Europe. So definitely there's a lot of conversation that is going in that space, and what is being paid to him and what does he pay with. Zelensky blasted Fico after his Moscow visit, and all in that space. So a lot of things going on in that space. And the scars of a 9.1 earthquake and tsunami continue to haunt Indians for decades. So Indonesia tsunami survivors holds on to hope for missing son after 20 years. So definitely that's something that's going on in the world. And judges confirm Chapo beats Monlane in a disputed poll in Mozambique. So definitely that's something that's being reported as well. So South Korea says it detects signs of North Korea preparing more troops and drones for Russia. So that's something that we're seeing as North Korea is preparing to send more troops to Russia, says South Korea. And Zelensky says North Korea could send more troops and military equipment to Russia. So that's something else that is being reported as well. So a lot of these things are things that will be talked about on our news for several days. And of course, people are getting ready for the Christmas holidays as well. And Netanyahu is definitely having some conversation, saying that Hamas is giving signs of life for a few hostages, as Israeli officials say, as the talks go on. And tens of thousands of students are protesting in Belgrade over the Novi Sad tragedy. So tens of thousands gathered in an anti-government protest in Belgrade. Thousands protest in Serbia as angers mount over that train station accident. So definitely that's something that was in the news, as Serbian schools closed early for winter break amid anti-corruption protests, and all in that space. And Syrian dictator pulled a wild move while fleeing to Russia. And some folks are saying that that's a bit hilarious, as they're talking about the last days of Bashar al-Assad. So how Assad's inner circle scrambled to escape Syria after the regime's fall. And of course, a lot of people are still talking about the Pellicott trial, as it has thrown up some difficult questions about male desire and the impact of things in terms of rape cases all over not just France, but around the world. So France landmark rape trial is over, but the Balakot case demonstrates that systematic violence against women runs deep. So a lot of people will be talking about that as well. And a U.S. ship shoots down a jet in friendly fire over Red Sea, according to the military. So that's something else that was being reported as well, as the U.S. Super Hunter shoots down over the Red Sea in a friendly fire incident, according to folks that are saying that the aviators are safe. So definitely that's something that is being talked about in the news as well. And at a Lapland summit, EU leaders say defense spending must rise. The Prime Minister of Italy says the threat from Russia is much more far-reaching than we realize. And Russia's security threat is far-reaching, is what the Italian Prime Minister has warned. So Russia threatening Europe with waves of migrants, according to Meloni. So that is something else that was being reported as well. And Iran is the low-hanging fruit of the anti-American axis. Iran's weakened position could lead it to pursue nuclear weapons, Biden National Security Advisor warns, and all in that space. So the Kremlin denies reports that Asma al-Assad is seeking divorce and a return to Europe. So that's something else that has been reported in the news, and we'll see whether folks are thinking about that as well. And Sweden says China denied requests for prosecutors to board ship linked to severed cables. China claims cooperation in the Baltic Sea cable probe, but Sweden says otherwise. So definitely a lot's going on in that space as Rome's iconic Trevi Fountain reopens after renovation work in time for the Jubilee Holy Year. So Rome's Trevi Fountain is restored in time for the Jubilee year, and all in that ways. And the Christian population has declined 90% under the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, a study says out of the Jerusalem Post. And definitely Bethlehem plans another somber Christmas under the shadow of war in Gaza. So that is something else that people are talking about as well. And Syria's new government is ready to run ISIS detainee camps, Turkish minister says, as Israel and Turkey are shaping a new Syria from their borderline. So we'll see how this new leadership goes and all in that space. But that's just some of the world news that was out there as all along. And by the way, a small plane crashes into a building in a Brazilian city, killing 10. All 10 passengers killed after the small plane crashed into a house in southern Brazil. So definitely that's a lot going on, as well as the Philippines says it will acquire U.S. Typhoon missile system, sparking warnings from China. China says Philippine plans to deploy mid-range missiles would be extremely dangerous, or something to that effect. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out as well. So definitely a lot's going on as the Jerusalem Cardinal makes a rare holiday visit to Gaza after the Pope's rebuke of the IDF. So church holds Christmas Mass amid horrors of Israel's war in Gaza, and definitely lots going on in that space as well. And it looks like NATO's Rutte is saying Zelensky's criticism of Schultz is unfair, and stop criticizing your ally. NATO boss chides unfair of Zelensky for attacking Germany's Schultz, and all in that space. And Albania has banned TikTok for 1 year after the school stabbing that took place there. Teen murder drives Albania to ban TikTok for a year, and all in that space. Let's get to some U.S. news as well. And then, of course, we'll have the regular world edition tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and all in that space. So Ivy League suspect in the United Healthcare CEO's killing pleads not guilty. So he's pled not guilty in New York. And we'll see how this all plays out as well in that particular case. And a suspect in the New York City subway fire is charged with murder in a woman's death, and all in that space. So suspect accused of burning a woman to death on New York City subway is previously deported illegal immigrant, is what is being reported. And Biden gives life in prison to 37 of 40 federal death row inmates before Trump can come into office and everything. So Biden's death row computation draws a chorus of mixed reactions, and all in that space. And of course, Trump is threatening to take over the Panama Canal, and all in that kind of way. And I think he's also been looking at Greenland as well. So definitely a lot's going on in the world, and all in the space of what's taking place around the world and in world news. And of course, we'll have a lot of these things as well. In an Arizona speech, Trump jokes Musk is not going to be president bringing up the fact that that Elon Musk is actually a person that had been born in another country, that being of South African descent. But Trump addresses the idea that Musk is in charge, and definitely a lot of people have been talking about that in the news as well. So definitely a lot's going on, and we'll definitely see how this all plays out, including the Senate passing the Social Security bill to repeal WEP and the GPO. So it looks like Congress fixed a Social Security problem for government retirees, and it won't be cheap at all in that space. So definitely a lot going on in the world, and we'll be reporting on more of these news issues on tomorrow on our regular World Edition. But like I said, there was a little bit of a technical glitch this morning, so I wanted to get to some of the news stories that you may have missed because of being able to not hear me at all in that space. So just doing that on this particular evening, and of course, we'll be back with more World Edition tomorrow.